My sister and brother-in-law are moving across the country coming up here, and I am incredibly happy for them. It just seems like God has been blessing all these steps are kind of coming in alignment. It's been really neat. Selfishly, I'm very sad. I see them every week. But it's been really interesting as they're kind of processing this switch, this change, that it's going to require a change of lifestyle. That the vision of life that they are now kind of moving towards means that how they do life is going to have to change with it. So they were showing me this house they bought. And you think of being in Orange County, the tiny little, here's how we mow our grass, right? They're showing me this kind of like big area. And I'm like, dude, are you going to buy like a riding mower? Like how are you going to mow this giant lawn? And he's showing me this photo. He goes, check this out. I'm like, I don't see anything. What am I supposed to be seeing? He goes, no, that's what you're supposed to see. There's no cars on the road. We're driving on the road. There are no cars. And he's like explaining all this. And it's been really interesting to think about moving from Mission Viejo to Pittsburgh. That's a shift in a lot of things. They got to think about their cars and weather and all these kinds of things. But lifestyle has to match the vision of life that we adopt. My son begins his brand new career tomorrow. First day, real job. We're super excited for. No, he needs to get a job. Okay, so. But I've been talking to friends. He just graduated. I've been talking to some of his friends, some of his peers who've graduated, some of others. And it's been really interesting to listen to how their lifestyle has changed now that they have a job. Like one of our young women was telling me how you get kind of trained, right? When you're a full-time student, you go to school all day, maybe a job, but then you have to come home and you have to do homework, and how nice it is to work really hard, come home and be done. I don't know how he's going to adapt to where video games are going to fit into his life, but the lifestyle has to change. The lifestyle we adopt has to match this vision we adopt. And so, but I think for us, we know this, we see this idea, but it's so true for us in our faith as well. Lifestyle is meant to match our faith life and are to come together. We are going through this book of Philippians. It's this short little letter that is written. We're going through this series called Ride the Wave of Joy. And what we began to see is that there's this way in which we're to think about how our life is going to match what is important to us. And so 2 weeks ago, what I encourage you to think about is you're going to see these three themes come out again and again in the letter. This idea of, for us, of unity, that there's this way in which how we have to think about how we live together. We're going to be thinking about the different ways. This theme is going to be like one of the key themes that we're going to see today, this idea of how do we live our life together. The process of how we join God. God is going to want to do something in our lives, but we have to join him in what he's doing. So we want to notice how we see these things, this idea of joy, and how does joy come about? Brandon pointed out last week that joy is going to come as a result of us recognizing our focus of our lives now that we are followers of Jesus is to live is Christ. Not to live is, we have a list of things, but the focus of our life, we just simply say it this way, for me to live is Christ. Christ is my life. And then therefore we're gonna watch how our lifestyle goes with this. So what Paul's gonna give us today, the writer of this letter, it's an encouraging letter, it's warm, but it also has challenge. But notice what he's gonna do today is gonna challenge us to think about the way that our lifestyle has to match that vision. So let me give you a big idea of what we're gonna see today. That a lifestyle of Christ-like humility, if we adopt this lifestyle of Christ-like humility, it will build a joyful community. There's this goal that he has that we develop this joyful community. How is this gonna happen? We are gonna have to develop a lifestyle that is marked by Christ-like humility. These themes are going to come out. It's a very textured, big idea. There's a lot that's going on in this, but I want you to see the way that these themes are coming together. Your faith is not just about you. You're going to see that it's about us. It's about how we live together. How I conduct myself has an effect on us. And so I want you to see this today. So turn to Philippians chapter 1. We're going to pick up where Brandon left off. Philippians 1, 27 to 11 is what we're going to look at. Now, this is a very important kind of, make a mental note of this. You are going to see the word you, and we hear this in English as in me. But when you see the word you, think of y'all, okay? Don't think of just you personally, think of us, okay? Think of us together. This is the idea that he's saying. I haven't seen a Bible translate it yet, y'all, but that's what in plural, it's a plural word, it's not a singular. So when he's saying you, he's speaking to like a group like us. The church might have been about this size of all the house churches together, may have fit into this room. And as they were listening to it, he's saying to you all, I want you to hear, here's how we live out this life that we're called to. This is what he's urging them to do, get their corporate life and act together. So he begins, we picked up where we left off. He says, whatever happens, conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel of Christ. Then whether I come to see you or only hear about you in my absence, I will know that you stand firm in the one spirit, striving together as one for the faith of the gospel, without being frightened in any way by those who oppose you. This is a sign to them that they will be destroyed, that you will be saved, and that by God. For it has been granted to you on behalf of Christ to not only believe in him, but also to suffer for him, since you're going through the same struggle you saw I had, and now here I still have. And we're gonna stop there as there's a chapter break in our Bibles. In Paul's letter, there's no chapter break. He didn't have chapters or verses. But we can pause there to just see something that's really important. So Paul was in prison. He didn't know if execution was on the table. He was confident, we saw last week, because you're praying for me. And he says, because of God's provision, meaning this idea that God is working in ways that we can't totally see, but he's working, we believe, on our behalf through your prayers. I'm confident I'm gonna get out of this. It's gonna work out for us. He says, but however it plays out, whatever happens, I'm asking y'all to conduct yourselves in a manner worthy of the gospel. Now, this is an idea. He's saying this: live out your identity. This phrase is kind of a unique phrase he uses in this part of the letter that he uses only a couple other times. It's very rare in the Bible, but the idea is this: how you see yourself, how you identify yourself, you should live consistently with that. That's what he's trying to get at. And so it was used, those that were Jewish when they were exiled, this was like an important idea. Don't lose your Jewish identity. Others, this for the Philippians, this is a really important idea because identity for them was a significant thing. They took pride as seeing themselves as Roman citizens. They didn't live in Rome, but this community helped Caesar win a battle. And he was very thankful, and he poured in resources, and he made this a very special place for Roman citizens to kind of live and retire. They saw their identity as Romans. They spoke Latin, they used Roman money and currency. Identity was a big deal to them. And what he's saying to the church as they gather together is, think about your identity. You belong to Jesus now. You have committed your life to Jesus. You're following Jesus. This is who you are now. And he's saying, if this is who you say you are, live your life in a manner worthy of who you say you are, of what your identity is. Here's maybe one of the ideas that we could begin to point out, that the Christian life is meant to be lived out publicly. This is what he's getting at. Who you are tomorrow, who you are at home, who you are at school, who you are in your job, who you are in your neighborhood, that conduct should match who you are when you're with the church. You can't be one person here and then someone totally different when you go other places. In middle school, guys in my neighborhood built a half pipe, a little skateboard ramp. It was pretty awesome. And my parents were very generous. They bought me a really nice skateboard. The problem was I couldn't skateboard. For the life of me, the fact that I didn't crack my head open is a miracle. But I was very afraid of dropping in on a half pipe and doing anything. But I had a really nice board. I had all the cool skate clothes. The problem was I didn't skateboard. And what do we call those people in Huntington Beach? Oh, see, man, you guys, you're on. It's embarrassing, right? To know when someone identifies you as a poser, you know who you are and how you act don't match up. Can you imagine someone at your work, someone in your home, seeing you pick up your Bible or whatever it is, wear your Beachpoint, I see the Beachpoint sticker on your car or whatever it is, and say, you're kind of a poser though, aren't you? Man, that would sting. That would hurt. The question would be, does my lifestyle match who I say I am? It doesn't mean you're not gonna fail. It doesn't mean you're not gonna struggle. I think we've got a couple of people baptized. Emmy's gonna get baptized today. It's gonna be awesome. And Emmy is saying through her baptism that her old life is being buried, that she's being raised up to live a new life of faith. Does that mean Emmy is not gonna make mistakes? She's gonna make a lot of mistakes, okay? It's okay. Yeah, thanks for saying that in front of my parents, right? She's gonna make a lot of mistakes. But what she's saying is, the life I'm choosing to live is a life in which I'm honoring, I'm trying to live a life that reflects who I say I am. This is what he's getting at. Now, he says this, how does this happen? We stand firm together and we strive together. We stand firm and we strive. The idea is that we in essence, we kind of lock arms together in our hope, in our faith, in the one Spirit who dwells in all of us. We lock arms together so that we're not afraid. The idea is think of a horse being startled. Like we won't get spooked and run off. But when we lock together, he says, it will be a sign to those who oppose you. Now, the image of a sign, what he means is this, that what they knew of this, it's a way of him saying, think of the Roman military. So he's using language they know. When he says sign, what he's trying to help them picture is the way that they as soldiers would have locked arms together and locked shields together. I don't know if you've ever seen this. This is I think it's called the Tortuga formation, but 100 could become one. They all would come together. They join their shields together as one. And because they were standing together, striving together as one, they were strong. It was a sign to their enemies that you were in for a fight. They would not be easily opposed. This is the image he's saying. He's saying to us, look, the way that we're going to live a life that represents who we say we are is we have to do it together. We're gonna have to stand together. We're gonna have to work together. We're gonna have to strive together. We have to hold firm together because trying to do it on your own is too hard. And so that's the language that he's getting at. Now, he's gonna give us an image to help us understand what this will look like. What will this look like? How can I give you an example? Notice what he says next. He says, okay, so chapter 2, verse 1, he says, therefore, so we're gonna try to do this, right? So if the answer to all these questions is, well, yes, the answer is yes, it is happening. So you can almost hear the word since. He says, if you have any encouragement from being united with Christ, he's trying to say, since you have been encouraged, if you have any comfort from his love, any common sharing in the Spirit, any tenderness and compassion, then make my joy complete by being like-minded, having the same love, being one in spirit and of mind. Again, notice the plural idea. If you're encouraged by God, then together be one. Be one in spirit, one in mind. Now, choose to do nothing out of selfish ambition or vain conceit. Rather, in humility, value the others above yourselves. Okay, so he's saying, look at those around you in this community. Think about who they are, think about their needs, and consider them above your own interests. Not looking at your own interests, but to the interests of others. And so he's implying to them that here's the way that we're gonna have joy, that you consider others surpassing you. Choose to be humble, choose to be sacrificial on behalf of the community. One of my seminary professors used to say it this way. He said, humility is not thinking less of yourself. It's simply thinking of yourself less. So hopefully you're getting a vibe here from this part of the letter. Here's the second thing I want you to see, that this lifestyle is marked by a life we live together. This isn't just something we each do in our own willpower. We need each other to do it well. And if we are willing to help each other by putting everyone else, think of the way that this is gonna work. In the beautiful, when it works beautifully, we are all in essence kind of laying down our rights and lives for each other. And there's this mutual sense of care. Some days I am being cared for and some days I'm caring. This is one of the things I love about our life groups, is that there's accountability. You're there to help me, but there's also responsibility. I'm there to help you. This is what he's asking of them, is that they learn to live this life together. Now, he gives them an example of how to do it. So here's the example of how to do it. Verse 5, in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. Here's how you do this. Look at Jesus. Here's what he says. Jesus, who being in very nature God, did not consider equality with God something to be used to his own advantage. Rather, he made himself nothing by taking the very nature of a servant, being made in human likeness, and being found in appearance as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient to death, even death on a cross. Now, these verses right here, most people believe that these verses existed before Paul wrote them. It was either a creed, it maybe was one of the early songs that they sung, but that these words existed from early on. And so Paul's pulling in perhaps a worship song to them, and he's saying, here's how to treat each other. Treat each other the way that Jesus treated us. He was God, and yet he chose to lay aside these divine attributes to come and to serve you. He's saying he's in very nature God. He's not the vice president. He's not the junior partner. He is God, the one who is worshiped by the angels, humbles himself, comes in, takes on flesh, comes into our world to serve us. He's saying, look, if you want to figure out how to treat each other, what is our lifestyle with each other going to look like? We need to look like Jesus to each other. I would say it this way, that it is marked by two things. One is radical humility, that we are called to live a life of radical humility. Jesus, these words, these are phenomenal words of who he is and what he was willing to do to bring you to God. Jesus enters into this world, the creator becoming creation. He comes into our world to serve us. He's made in human likeness. He's giving himself away. And we see the power of this, that humility, Jesus, all this requires tremendous humility. In fact, what it's saying is, if you want to know the nature of God, know how that humility is at the very heart of who he is. To rescue us from sin and death and hell, God himself comes in as a solution. He comes to rescue us. You and I know pride is always at the source of all our problems, all our sin. You dig down deep enough, you will find somewhere that root is being fueled by pride. I want what I want. I want to control. I want to lead. I want to make the decisions. Humility is the opposite of this. And this is who Jesus is. One scholar, John Stott, says it this way. He says, at every stage of our Christian development and in every sphere of Christian discipleship, pride is our greatest enemy, humility our greatest friend. Our lives have to be marked by radical humility, but they also then have to be marked by radical sacrifice. Notice what verse 7 says, that he made himself nothing. He became a servant. Servant is probably a too soft a word. It really is the word slave. And in that context, I mean, that is such a provocative, scandalous word to say that God became a slave to us. Here's one of the reasons why I trust the Bible is because the Bible wouldn't, if you wanted to make up a religion, you wouldn't make it up this way. You don't create a God who's humble and sacrificial. Like there's nothing else like that. The Bible just simply tells you who God is, and if you don't like it, it just says, I'm just trying to tell you who God is. And it's not trying to win you over, but this is where what we call good news. Here's the good news, that God, the Son of God enters our world. He takes on our likeness. He becomes a servant to us, and he gives his life in death, even death on the cross. Nothing more scandalous, nothing of greater humiliation in that time than to be crucified. But he does this because he is coming to fight for you, to fight your battle against death, to fight your battle against sin, to fight against evil, to fight a battle that we could never win. He comes to rescue us. He humbles himself. This is what he's saying. Look at what Jesus did for us. And the best way that we can figure out how to live our life together is that if we would live lives of radical humility and radical sacrifice for each other, if we do this, this will be a sign to the world. If we can link arms, if we can link shields together and be one in this way, the world will look at you and say, what is so different about you? You're not like everyone else. Now, here's the wonderful thing about humility. There is a promise to it that if you humble yourself, God will lift you up. See, this is a problem. We think of humility and we think, if I humble myself, if I put other people's needs before my own, who will take care of my needs? And the answer is always God. God's promise is, if you'll humble yourself to take care of other people, I will be the one who lifts you up. Again and again and again in Scripture, it's listed a number of times in a number of places. If you'll humble yourself, God will be the one who lifts you up. You don't have to try to preserve yourself. Give yourself away in these ways, and God will lift you up. And notice how this happens in the last verses. Verse 9, Jesus humbles himself. He gives his life up. He gives it up in the most excruciating way. Verse 9, therefore God exalted him to the highest place and gave him the name that is above every name, that at the name of Jesus, every knee should bow in heaven and on earth and under the earth, and every tongue acknowledge that Jesus Christ is Lord, to the glory of God the Father. Jesus lays down his life. He humbles himself. He sacrifices for us, and God raises him up. Now, when they heard these words, it was a little, it would have tripped them up a little bit because they were used to saying these words. Whenever they would go into public arenas, they would say these words, but they would say them about Nero, who was the Caesar at the time. They would bow and they would say that Caesar was King of Kings and Lord of Lords. They would kneel and they would say these things. They would worship the Caesar as a god. And Paul writes, and what has been their song now for decades is, we know there is one greater than Caesar. We know there is one who's greater than Nero. We know that even Nero will one day bow and confess that Jesus is Lord. Right before I walked up, you sang this chorus that you're willing to give everything and nothing less. And it's hard to do that unless if you look at these verses and you see in essence, this is what Jesus did for you. He gave everything for you. When we see that and see the beauty of that and see that what it is that God would do for you, to say, oh, that I want you for myself. I'm jealous for you. I want you. I want a life with you. He calls to us and says, come to me. Trust me. Have a life with me. To say everything and nothing less is really a response to say, when I see what you've done for me, Jesus, I don't know what else to say except I want to kneel and bow and say to you, you deserve everything of my life. You've been so good to me, so gracious. So let me just encourage you with a couple responses. What does it look like then to live this out? What will our lifestyle look like? One is just, we got to learn to imitate Jesus in our conduct. Who we are at work, at home, who we are on social media, who we are out, if we're saying we belong to Jesus, our lifestyle should reflect that radical humility and that radical sacrifice. That's who Jesus is. And if we say we are his followers, that's what our conduct should demonstrate. But we should also imitate Jesus in our relationships. Remember what verse 5 says. In your relationships, your attitude should be like Jesus has towards you, his relationship to you. So how you treat your mom, how you treat your family, how you treat your friends, how you treat the people in your lives. What is he saying? Treat others the way Jesus treated you. Now, as I was looking at this week, I was thinking, oh man, this is just so hard. I mean, I want to do this. I want to live with radical humility and radical sacrifice. And I'm sure maybe some of you feel maybe a little motivated, like, yeah, this is right, this is good. But in my honesty with myself, like, I can't do this. I have such selfish desires in my heart. I have such, every inclination in me is still an inclination to fight against what the Spirit wants. I want what I want. And as I was praying through this, I was like, Lord, I don't know how to do this. And I'm supposed to teach everyone how to do this. I'm supposed to be up front and model this. And it's just, Lord, this comes so hard. And I realized the thing that has helped me the most is what we've been promoting today, and it wasn't really the plan, but the thing that has helped me the most has been being with a group of people and doing it together. All through my life, I can see that the seasons where this has come the easiest, it's because I'm doing this with a group of people. So that's why we're encouraging you to join a life group. This is a vision that we have here, is that you would live like Jesus together. There's about 700 people in life groups here at our church, about 350 adults, about 350 3rd through 12th graders. We have a women's Bible study. I think there's somewhere between 50 and 100 women who meet in small groups and are connected together. We have, on Monday nights, we have our Celebrate Recovery ministry, which then invites you into step studies. I think we have 3 or 4 of those groups. These groups they are where people grow, but also where people realize I can't do this on my own, but I can do it if others are doing it with me. Leading a group myself, every week, one of the things I found was I always found new insights by listening to the people in my group of what it looked like to live like Jesus. But what I also found was, even though I'm the pastor of the church, even though I'm leading the group, these people cared about me. And as I opened my life and my struggles with them, and they protected that in our circle, they would reach out to me. They would text me. They would call me. They would say, hey, how did that go? I was praying for that this week. And what I began to realize was I'm not doing this alone. And so I want to just encourage you, go to beachpoint.com/life groups and join a group. That's what we want for you. Here's what I know. Trying to do it all on your own, What you can do on your own versus what we can do together is such a different thing. I was struck by a story. There was a college student at Utah State. He was riding his motorcycle. He's heading to the computer lab, and a car pulled out right in front of him. The two hit, burst into flames. The motorcycle and this guy, Brandon, trapped underneath the car. As they were trapped underneath the car, the woman, it burst into flames, and the woman was able to get out of her car. Another woman ran over to the car to see how this young man was. They couldn't see if he was moving. They assumed maybe he was dead. Then she noticed some movement. And so this one woman is trying to lift a 4,000-pound car by herself. But when the people standing by saw what was going on, a team of people ran, and a number of people joined along the car and grabbed the car and began to lift the car together. Someone else drug him out, rescued him, and saved his life. And the message is so powerful. What one person could not do alone, a group could do. I don't know if you've got a 4,000-pound burden on you right now. Even if it's 1,000 pounds and you think you can do it by yourself, you can't. But a group can go through that with you. And so we want to encourage you today. We're going to spend the next month trying to encourage you to get into a group. We want that for you. We just think, I don't know what you think is coming in the fall and winter. You think you got your fall and winter all planned out. Good luck with that. But whatever is ahead of us, if you have a group of people who will help you live like Jesus together, you will find it is a big difference. So I'm going to encourage you this month to find your way into a life group.